Here's 3 steps to transform any bad habit. First, we're going to go into how a habit, or I guess a bad habit, manifests, right? Emotional trigger. Something happens that creates an emotional response that feels bad, which leads to a bad habit. We'll get to that in a second. Another way to think about emotions is energy in motion. The reason why you take any action, you move your body from point A to point B, whether you are aware of it or not, is because of an emotion you feel. Some shit happens, emotion gets triggered, oh dear. 1 second. Forgot to add these arrows. You perform the bad habit in response. You get yelled at, emotion gets triggered, you feel anxiety, you go outside for a smoke, the bad habit. Why are you doing this? You're doing this to regulate the emotion, the negative emotion that was triggered. I mean, it should say negative emotional trigger, but I mean, you get the point, right? Emotional trigger, bad habit. In this case, we'll say smoking. Oh my God, the anxiety's gone. Had a smoke, thank gosh. And this is also bidirectional. Forgot those arrows, but what that means is that the bad habit leads to the emotional regulation, but after your emotions are regulated, can lead to another emotional trigger. Makes you more sensitive to the emotional trigger because you're not dealing with it at its core, which then can lead to the bad habit. Also, the bad habit can lead to an emotional trigger. It might cause another. So the smoking might make you depressed. You might be shit-talking yourself while you're smoking. Like, oh man, you're such a piece of shit. Always smoking. You suck. Ah. And then in response to the bad habit, in this case, smoking cigarettes, leads to an emotional trigger of maybe negativity, internal self-hatred, internal anger. So then you go and you eat a bunch of food. Smoked to regulate my anxiety from being yelled at. Smoking made me critique myself, be angry at myself for being so weak for smoking. I go inside to regulate my emotions through eating, which is the bad habit. I was a little over the place, but you get the point. So this just is a very simple habit loop, but it's always about your emotions getting triggered by something in the external environment or by your actions that you're taking. So we go to step 1. Step 1, identify triggered subpersonality. For each emotional trigger, there's a part of yourself that gets triggered. What I mean by this is that, believe it or not, when you have an addiction, your entire being is not addicted to that thing. So we use smoking, let's continue on it, right? You have an addiction to smoking, an unhealthy attachment to smoking. Your entire being is not entirely attached to smoking. Another part in this scenario that we used is attached or addicted to overeating or junk food. So one part likes to smoke, the other one likes to eat junk food. You might have another one or another part of yourself that loves sex, loves TV, loves work, loves being productive, right? You're not just one singular thing. Doesn't mean you're just like, oh, I smoke, so therefore I'm this fuck up. No, a part of yourself is getting emotionally triggered. Not every part of yourself, right? You're smoking and one part of yourself is like, hey, what the fuck? I thought we're not smoking. Well, the other one's like, other part of yourself is like, but that helps with my anxiety. Not your entire being. So to make this more nuanced, more specific, a part of yourself, a subpersonality, gets emotionally triggered, bad habit, emotional regulation, cycle continues. Vicious cycle of addiction, bad habits, you get the point. Unhealthy attachments. So that's the first step. You need to identify what part of yourself is getting triggered, emotionally speaking. Step 2, work with the triggered subpersonality. So down here we have some example subpersonalities. I don't know if you can read them, probably more for me than for you, but I can, obviously I can use my voice. Down here we have the self is in the center, so that's your core being. The unchanging, consistent essence of who you are. Some people call it the soul, the Atma, the self. I don't know. You, right? The awareness behind the shit that's going on in the external. And then around it, surrounding it is things like your inner child, perfectionist, inner parents. Yes, your parents are inside of you, I'm sorry to tell you. Not in that way, but you get the point. Controller, which can be thought of as kind of your main ego identity, the day-to-day subpersonality that kind of runs everything else and gets everybody in its place. When I say everybody, I mean your other subpersonalities. Inner demons, which is more of a shadow concept. The shadow could be another part of yourself, but it's more of a broader encompassing aspect of your psyche. But you work with one of these subpersonalities, whichever one was triggered. It could be your inner child, could be an inner demon, could be your inner parents, could be your inner perfectionist. We don't know, right? Maybe in this example, we'll stick with the inner perfectionist. So let's say you mess something up, right? You want things to be perfect, you mess something up, somebody yells at you for making a mistake. Your inner perfectionist feels that anxiety of we need to be perfect, we can't make mistakes. And oh look, now we just got external validation and external stimulus saying you fucked up and you should feel bad about it. And then because your inner perfectionist is triggered emotionally by getting yelled at for making that mistake, go outside, have a smoke to regulate the anxiety, regulate that negative emotion. So you work with this trigger subpersonality. In this scenario, we've identified, right? In this scenario, your inner perfectionist. Where did this inner perfectionist come from? Why do you feel that you need to be perfect? Why do you have this anxiety, this fear response to someone yelling at you when you make a mistake? Because you don't have to feel fear. We think when someone yells at us, we're supposed to be like, oh my God, I can't believe you're yelling at us. Stop. It's scary. But you don't have to, right? You could choose your response. I'm not saying it's not easier said than done. I mean, if people are yelling at me, I'm not like, I'm just like, fuck you. I get angry or I have a response too, but we can acknowledge that we don't have to act that way. We don't have to respond in that manner. We can choose a healthier way. So work with, in this scenario, your inner perfectionist and figure out what's going on. Was it because your mom was a perfectionist? Because you got in trouble, spanked, hit whenever you made a mistake? Pressure from teachers even? Or your peers were super exceptional, industrious, or intelligent, and you had to study your ass off or not make mistakes just to keep up with everybody else? It could be a multitude of reasons. That's why you work with the triggered subpersonality and figure out, okay, what do they need? What's going on? What are the wounds that this part of yourself has? What are the wounds that are getting triggered by this stimulus leading to that bad habit of this particular part of yourself? Because like I said before, and I cannot say it enough, you are not entirely addicted or attached to your bad habit or to that thing that you don't want to keep doing, whether it's smoking, sex, overeating, social media, etc., etc., etc. Only a part of you is addicted or attached in an unhealthy way. Only a part of you. Finally, step 3, replace a bad habit with a healthy habit. So what I mean by that is, think of it in an alchemic process where one of the Hermetic laws is energy, or I guess it's a universal law. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, it can only be transformed. So once you've worked with this subpersonality, understood why it's doing what it's doing, what the core issue is, in this case, the perfectionist, will continue on that example, feels anxiety because it doesn't want to fuck up. And it very sensitive to any external sources of disapproval. What does this inner perfectionist need? Maybe in this example, it needs meditation to calm the mind, to be more centered, allowing external stimulus to have less of an effect on your internal state. So maybe instead of smoking, having a cigarette, you go outside and you take 5 minutes to do some box breathing exercises. And that's your new habit in this example, instead of smoking. So you know what needs to be done, what your inner perfectionist wants, and you give it to them, instead of the bad habit, which we know is not solving the problem and not dealing with the core issue. And so instead of developing or making, or I should say, instead of making things worse with that bad habit, which is actually making you more sensitive to the emotional trigger, you actually instead do something that progresses you forward and makes you more resilient to that emotional trigger. So you fill that space with something else. When you take away that bad habit, you want to fill it in with a healthy habit, because that void is going to want to get filled. And you want to fill it with something positive consciously, because what's happened before is that you filled it unconsciously. And then down here is just a general idea of the parts work. Different parts get triggered depending on the environment, people, stimulus, and vibe. So different parts are going to be triggered, and then different bad habits will arise. So in one instance, you'll check your phone. In another instance, you'll smoke a cigarette. In another instance, you're going to eat junk food, or you'll seek sex or watch porn. The list is endless. I think you get the point. You're smart enough. And then, at the bottom, different parts of yourself have different bad habits. Your entire being is not addicted to everything. You have parts of yourself that are addicted to different things, or attached to different things in a healthy way or unhealthy way. This can all be kind of confusing and difficult to follow when it comes to actually applying it. If you want to take actual action on this information and not just, sit here and watch me rattle off a bunch of stuff, I have a guide, transformation guide, that you can get the link down below. It gives you a step-by-step guide, things like this, to transform your bad habits into healthy habits so you can transform your life and turn your self-sabotage into self-mastery. Or if you want to work with me one-on-one because you feel like you need more help or guidance, you can also sign up for a 90-minute transformation session down below, link in bio. I appreciate your time. Cheers.